We finally made it to Season 5, but before we start anything, I just want to say thank you to Volta Base for the intro you just saw. A link for his Twitter will be in the description below. Season 5 is like Season 3 in that it is split up into two parts. The part that people actually care about, and then the shitty filler that comes beforehand that we have to sit through. With each passing filler, they get more and more boring and worse, barring Season 4, because at least they tried to do some interesting things, even though they did fall completely on their face for a lot of it. Like previous fillers, there is a noticeable drop in the animation quality. The Kaiba Grand Prix is where most of the screenshots you'll see of the really shitty animations come from. Characters just look like they're melting, proportions are all off, no one is on model, it's a mess to say the least. I'd speculate they probably had no time or budget to make this season because a lot of things are just reused. There's tons of reused shots of characters placing cards either on their dual disc or pulling them from their deck, but you can tell that they're reused because you can see some of the cards and they don't match what it eventually shows that they drew or placed onto the field. New cards are just recolored old cards, like Ruby Dragon is just Luster Dragon, but they put a red filter over it. Like with Mai in Season 4, Mokuba has been recasted. And for some reason, I'm guessing they told Carrie Karanin to sound like an 8-year-old who smokes 12 packs a day.
The Kaiba Corp duel system has access. Why don't you
just
try
about
opening a
everything
The beauty of this filler is that you could watch it in ×2 speed and miss absolutely nothing because nothing happens in this whole fucking thing. Season 5 picks up where 4 left off. Kaiba Corp's reputation is in ruin and their stocks are down due to the whole darts incident because for some reason people thought that holograms became solid mass and they were attacking everything. And this is Kaiba Corp's fault, so he decides to host a tournament at his new open Kaiba land to drum up some hype for his company, where people will have the shot to take the title away from Yugi. In the original Japanese version, the Kaiba Grand Prix was hosted in America, which is why Rex and Weevil are wandering around because they aren't able to get back to Japan after the end of Season 4. But in the dub, they make it so they're trying to sneak into the competition. They decide to give Taya this gag line throughout the whole arc that she says at least once or twice an episode of, "I need some girlfriends." Sometimes it doesn't even make sense in the context of what they're doing, but they just throw it in anyway, so I'm assuming that's just an English translation thing that they shoved in, trying to make it comedic maybe? As is tradition with all these fillers, of course the gang has to fight the 5-headed dragon because we can't fucking escape this stupid monster. After they defeat it, they move on to the entrance ceremony where they introduce all the characters that will instantly get removed in about 1 or 2 episodes. The only ones that actually have any importance are the guy that's clearly the villain, Siegfried, and Chun-Li. Just another case of missed potential where they had characters that could have had interesting interactions with the main group, like the doctor where he has his nurses pat his head down for sweat while he's shuffling the cards. Little things like these that could just make the season more memorable because it really doesn't have anything to it. It really feels like a retread of Duelist Kingdom and Battle City combined, where you introduce these characters that could possibly be interesting and make the season memorable and have fans latch onto, but then you don't do anything with them. Like, there's a reason why Weevil, Rex, and Esperoba are dual events in Duel Links. I doubt we'll ever get one for Dr. Man or guy with monkey on his shoulder. Another tradition with Yu-Gi-Oh! Fillers and 4Kids dubs, they decided to give the main villain an awful accent, just like they did with Dan from Bakugan in the last season.
Take some ease. I won't even break a sweat on you.
Amazingly enough, the show actually teaches you some actual rules about the game.
The last card played in a turn always activates first, so the first card has no effect on the last even though it was played first.
Apparently 4Kids decided this was too risque and removed the pill from Ultra Evolution. All of Siegfried's goddesses look like they're straight out of a how-to-draw anime book. I'm really struggling here to have anything to talk about. This takes all of the bad aspects of every single filler we've covered so far, and then puts them all together to make one big shit sandwich. It has the unnecessary bloatedness of capsule monsters. It has the overarching plot of someone trying to take away Kaiba's business, which has happened in pretty much every single filler in some way, shape, or form. Having someone from Kaiba's past to fuck with him. Retardedly overpowered cards that the main villain has, it just keeps adding on effects as it goes, like in Season 4. Siegfried's whole motivation to try to ruin the Kaiba Corporation and fuck with Kaiba is because he was always second best to Kaiba growing up. Kaiba beat him to the punch to everything he ever tried to do. The holographic systems, the game company. They always felt like he was living in his shadow, which isn't a bad plot line to have by itself, but it's not really anything new we haven't seen already at this point. But we did get some nice character moments from Kaiba's point of view, like when he's being confronted by Siegfried in front of the crowd and Siegfried's accusing him of being a cheater. Kaiba goes off about how the reason why he has everything that he does is through hard work and determination. While they are nice and I do like them, it does seem kind of repetitive because he has to keep reaffirming this in every single filler and even in the main story for season 1 and parts of 2. Then Siegfried reveals that the kid that's been following Yugi and the gang all along has been his brother, and that Siegfried wasn't really the person that they should be afraid of, it's Leon. And Siegfried was just a distraction to keep them all busy. The thing I haven't mentioned though is that Leon doesn't have the same goofy accent that Siegfried has had the whole show. It's pretty obvious that they did this because they didn't want it to be a dead giveaway, which leads me to going, well, why did they give Siegfried this accent to begin with then? The excuse or reason you could use for why Leon doesn't have the accent, you could probably go, oh, that's because Leon was separated from the family and lived on his own for a bit. But then even in the flashbacks, you see that he didn't have the accent then, and all of his family did. So that doesn't explain why he wouldn't, other than the fact that he can't have it so the twist wouldn't reveal itself early. Just like how Siegfried's hair is darker in all the flashbacks. That looks way closer to Leon's color of hair. In the present day, Siegfried's hair is pink, but it's more of a darker red maroon shade in all the flashbacks. And Siegfried reveals his plan is that Leon is going to defeat Yugi and take the title of King of Games, which would somehow wipe out Kaiba Corp so that the Schrodinger company, which is their company, would be able to move in and become the #1 games company in the world with their new games that he's going to show off after he wins, which he expects to eclipse Duel Monsters. Even though Duel Monsters is so big, it used an entire city to host a tournament, and in a few years it's going to have its own Duel Academy Island and then its own racing sport where they play on motorcycles. He honestly thinks just because he shows it off here, that means it's automatically going to be successful. And Kaiba thinks this is so fucking stupid that he just laughs in his face, and everyone's kind of taken aback by it. It's great. His whole evil speech about how he's cheating is even televised, and people can see that. Why the fuck would you ever trust this person and buy his products? It's like if Gearbox challenged Blizzard with their team of rejects that play Battleborn against the world champions of Overwatch, and if they somehow beat them, then they'd be the sole controller of the team-based FPS market. And then Randy Pitchford comes out on stage and is like, hey guys, don't forget to buy Battleborn. We definitely didn't steal money from all of our licensed games to make it like we did with Borderlands 2. Duke Nukem who? Aliens Colonial what? I'd understand this more if Siegfried was kind of like Darts, where he just comes off like a crazed lunatic that's just trying to do some crazy bullshit, but up until now he's played as some sort of methodical character that plots out all of these certain things, and he's got this all thought out with this grand plan and how he's going to take over this company. And then it's revealed, wait, he's just a fucking idiot. And this doesn't feel intentional. It feels like we're supposed to still think that he's some sort of all-powerful genius, judging from everyone else's reactions barring Kaiba. But then he reveals that he has the bestest card ever that he snuck in with all the distractions and hacked it to give it all these broken powers. There's absolutely no way Yugi could ever win. It's basically the same thing with the Seal of Orichalcos Deuteros in season 4, where Darts just added a billion fucking effects over and over again. So Siegfried programmed the Golden Castle to, during each standby phase, require you to send half your deck to the graveyard, be able to special summon one level 4 monster return. All monsters special summoned by this card and all of your opponent's monsters must attack if they're able to, and when your opponent declares an attack, the monster is destroyed and half of its attack is dealt to their life points. And this card cannot be destroyed or affected by monsters, spells, or traps. And the discarding half your deck effect is required to be paid by the opponent. So each turn, Yugi's having to discard half his deck. He also mentions that the castle's programmed to unleash a virus that deletes everything Kaiba's ever had for his company, and the only way to stop it is by destroying the castle. All seems lost due to this super contrived plot device power card, but then Yugi pulls it out of his ass by going, well, I've thinned out my deck to only have one card, so now I can't discard only half of one card, so your castle has to be destroyed because it cannot maintain its maintenance cost, which is actually pretty cool. I do like this. It feels really reminiscent to how Yugi beat Slifer back in season 2, where he made his opponent deck out. Now that the castle's finally destroyed, Yugi can defeat Leon, and then Siegfried runs over, cries, and apologizes that he jeopardized everybody's life with all of these crazy bullshit, and everyone just forgives him and the day's saved and everyone goes home. The end. Now we get to move on to the half of the season that everyone actually cares about, Dawn of the Duel. Dawn of the Duel is the final arc of Duel Monsters, split into two stories, the Pharaoh's Memory and the Ceremonial Battle. Compared to the last half, animation is vastly improved, for the most part. At times, it really feels like they have two different keyframe artists working on a specific scene, especially when they have the gang in the same shot as characters who are from Egypt. It's usually Joey or Yugi that look the most off model and really weirdly proportioned, like eyes are super spaced out or their head just looks malformed. But I have to say, watching the Pharaoh's Memory is some of the most fun I've had since the beginning on Duelist Kingdom. So good job, Season 5. You pulled it back. My biggest complaint is definitely the fact that it keeps cutting away from the Pharaoh doing interesting stuff in his memories in Egypt to Yugi and the gang just walking around aimlessly with Egyptian Mr. Popo. Other than that, my only other gripe is some of the plot points are just brushed away and explained with, it's Egyptian dark magic, don't worry about it. Which at this point, I should just accept that it's a part of the show, even if it doesn't consistently stay to its own rules and just adds in new things, where the Shadow Realm was like, oh, now I can control time in the Shadow Realm. Like, what? Why didn't Bakura use this when he was losing his duel back in Season 1? It really reminds me of JoJo, in which how some characters' powers just keep adding on as it goes along without rhyme or reason. Topical at the time, for example, Giorno. Golden Experience just gets a ton of effects as the story goes along. None I'm going to spoil for any of the people who are just watching the anime. It really feels like Araki had no idea what he wanted Golden Experience to do at first. So it's like, just add this and this and this. The beginning of this story starts out with Grandpa telling Yugi about how he got the Millennium Puzzle. Flashback Grandpa is actually voiced by Mark Darrison, who is the voice of Guts in the Berserk 1997 anime and the Golden Age trilogy. So while watching this, I just imagined Indiana Guts raiding the tombs of Egypt along with two Kushian soldiers. It's fantastic. What isn't fantastic though is all of the censorship in this episode, which is going to set a precedent for how it's going to be for the rest of this arc. To give a few examples of censorships in this episode, the toothpick that young Grandpa throws at the statue was actually a cigarette in the Japanese version. The guides assisting him are also carrying guns, which of course are removed, along with how they force him to cross the bridges and then eventually shoot him in the shoulder, which is why he falls off and hangs from the end, needing to be saved by the Pharaoh spirit. I'll be bringing up the censorships as we cover the story throughout the video. If you've been watching the show up until now, in the background through all of the mainline seasons, that being 1, 2, the second half of 3, and the second half of 5, Bakura has been trying to collect all the Millennium items in order to return them to this stone tablet, for a reason that hasn't been revealed yet to the viewer. When being confronted by Yugi, he tells him to prepare for the ultimate shadow game that'll commence in Egypt. Then Bakura heads over to Kaiba Corp and challenges Kaiba to a duel, where he then uses polymerization to make a non-fusion monster. It's not even like they miscolored it in the English version when they changed the format of the cards to remove the Japanese text. It's also just an effect monster in the Japanese version, so I don't really know what's going on here. The sun begins to come up and Bakura decides to end the duel here, giving Kaiba the Millennium Eye and telling him to meet him in Egypt if he wants any answers to the visions that he's seeing. It then cuts back to Yugi and the gang arriving in Egypt, where they meet with Ishizu and Merrick again. They reach the stone tablet that they originally saw back in Season 2 that was in the museum that told about the prophecy of the Pharaoh. Yugi holds up the 3 god cards to the tablet and the Pharaoh's spirit gets sucked into it, along with the spirit of Yami Bakura, which has been hiding out in the puzzle since Season 3 Part 2. What's this? They're referencing things that happened previously and have an overarching plot point to the show? Shocking, I know. We get some cool episodes where we get to see the origin of the Dark Magician and the origin of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, introducing characters like Mahad and Kasara, who would later on become the base design and inspiration for the Maiden with Eyes of Blue. We also get to see the full extent of how duels operated back in ancient Egypt 5,000 years ago. Fights pretty much play out like Digimon or Pokemon, where the person just sends out their monster, which is tied to their spirit in this, and they just come in to do attacks. Since they're more simplistic battles in the sense they don't have magic or trap cards, there's no longer ass poles revolving those. Instead, you get shit like Yami Bakura is now able to reverse time to a certain extent, or stop people just in their tracks with magic, which is, and it kind of leaves the watcher going, wait, how does all this work? Why does he able to turn back time now? How is exactly going into the Pharaoh's memory going to affect the future? But then it reveals that they're not just in the Pharaoh's memory, they're taking part in a shadow game, the Dark RPG, and everybody in it is a pawn to each of the players, that being the Pharaoh and Yami Bakura. The Dark RPG feels like a really cool extension and built upon idea from having the cast be player pieces, like where the the duel monsters back in season 1, where Yugi was the Dark Magician, Taya was the Magician of Faith, and so on. But this wouldn't be a fight between the Pharaoh and a main villain unless the main villain goes, well, since I'm actually running this game, I have all of these powers. And Yami Bakura pulls out 3 hourglasses and goes, well, actually, this one allows me to turn back time whenever I need to, and this one allows me to stop every piece on your board except mine. And then this one is gonna release the dark one that I've been trying to revive this whole time, no matter what. So even if you manage to stop me by getting all of the pieces, it doesn't fucking matter, because I'm gonna win in the end. Which has me wondering, if he could have just released Zork the Dark One by just having this hourglass empty out, then why is he even going through the trouble of trying to get all the Millennium items away from the court of the Egyptian Pharaoh? Why not just let Zork get out and then attack him and be like, hi, I revived Zork while you weren't looking. I get that you want to fuck with them because they destroyed your village, but it seems kind of counterproductive because you just get fucked up a lot of the times in fights, except for when you turn back time. And then you got Thanos.
Millennium Scale, Millennium Rod, Millennium Ring, Millennium Puzzle, Millennium Eye, Millennium Key, and thank goodness,
the Millennium Dildo. They finally managed to resurrect Zork. Oh. Horny on main, I see. In all seriousness, it's really unfortunate how badly they censored Zork's design for the 4Kids version. I still think the manga design is way better than even the original uncensored version. But now that Zork's resurrected, we could just spend the rest of the show just laughing at how bad some of the censorship shots get in this from here on out. The only real full duel to happen in the Pharaoh's memory part is a duel between Yugi and the possessed body of Tristan by the spirit of Yami Bakura, or at least a part of it, and it's making himself look like Yami Bakura. And boy, is this fight fucking awful. I think what gets me the most is how everybody around Yugi is just like, this is the hardest duel he's ever fought ever. What is he gonna do? Which for most of the time, it feels like he's in the complete control of the duel and he's in the driver's seat and he has nothing to worry about. It's even more annoying when they keep cutting to this duel and interrupting shit like the giant kaiju battle between Exodia and Zork, which is the best thing to happen in this show, period. Nobody can convince me otherwise. Then it cuts to the Pharaoh and Yami Bakura playing at the Dark RPG table, and Yami Bakura goes, actually, I've been Zork all along. And everyone acts surprised, and I'm like, what? Well, why? This has been like kind of obvious from the beginning. So let's get this straight. Yami Bakura is actually Zork, who is trying to free himself or another version of him from the mind, which is part of Zork is past, which affects the future. Because that's just Zork, but also not Zork. It's up to the Pharaoh to defeat Zork, because he's the only one who can do it. So he comes down from the table to possess the him that's there, which is also him, because it's still the same person, and it's not like it's him from that time period and you're just watching through his eyes. Anyway, he then has a big battle with Zork, and they punch each other, and he summons the gods, and it's kind of cool. But then it has the worst censorship because you can't show a dragon mouth being gripped around a monster, apparently. I don't know why. So they just covered it blue, and it looks like fucking shit. Like, this is laughably bad. The gang finally learns the Pharaoh's name, but they don't know how to read it or say it because in Egyptian. So what they do is they think really, really hard until the name appears on the little necklace that Taya gave the Pharaoh at the beginning of the season. Zork proves to be too tough for the Egyptian gods, kicks everybody's ass, so Atem goes, alright, I'm gonna fuse all the gods now, and makes the creator of light. It kind of looks like a combination of Noah's final boss Shinato from season 3 part 1 and Alexander's Lego Mecha from Capsule Monsters, who in a single fart destroys Zork and the concept of darkness and the shadow games forever, throughout all of time and space.
There will not be another. You have conquered the embodiment of pure darkness from which all evil is born.
So I'm done?
Yeah, don't think too hard about that one. So now all that's left for Atem is to do the ceremonial battle, where he needs to lose a duel in order for his soul to finally go to rest and pass on.
Traps don't work on Obelisk.
I'm not using it on him! I'm using it on the fields under him!
But how?
Wait, so if you can't affect the monster, you're just gonna affect the ground? What? Are they just throwing out the whole god cards aren't affected by things? Because if this spell card can redirect Slifer's attack, doesn't that mean its effect is affecting his effect? And then Oh my, oh fuck, I don't fucking care anymore. I just don't. Dumb shit aside surrounding the god cards, I did like this duel. Not for the duel itself per se, but there was a lot of nice interactions between the gang and Atem as they're coming to grips with the fact that they're not going to be able to see him anymore and he's going to pass on. The best line in my mind is definitely where Kaiba comes to the realization that Yugi is actually the king of games. Like, it wasn't just Atem carrying him, even though it was, don't worry about that though, and recognizes him as an actual really good duelist, which they kind of backpedal with the movie, but we'll talk about that in that video. I know I really shouldn't be praising it, but I absolutely love how the second to last episode ends with, instead of to be continued, to be concluded. I love shit like that. The only thing that I like more is when an ending hard cuts to black and it's just silent credits rolling after something dramatic happens. Like the end of the first season for Aldnoah Zero, a show that I can't fucking stand and I hate, but when it hard cut to black and silence, that was a nice touch. I liked that. They got some points for that. I really think Teia's speech as Atem was leaving really took away some emotional impact from the scene because it's just terrible. I also really don't like the ending to the show. It just kind of abruptly ends on a joke, which feels kind of out of place.
At least make one of your little wrap-up speeches, Yug. Well, sometimes the end of one adventure is just the beginning of another. Much better.
I mean, it's better than the flashbacks like every other season has had so far, but that still doesn't mean this is good. If you made it this far, I just want to say thank you for watching. This one's taken quite a while because I kept putting it on the back burner because I just wasn't really satisfied with how the video came out. I'm still not really that satisfied. I think this is definitely the weakest one I'm releasing as is. Over time, I always grow to hate all of my videos just because I look at them and I'm like, ooh, I could have done this better, or I could have explained myself better and framed things less poorly and maybe condense the video down better. It's crazy, honestly, the fact that I uploaded the first video as a joke for my friends to watch when I had no subs at all. Now, with season 5 uploading, I just passed 70,000. It's crazy, honestly. I never thought anything like this would come of making a dumb video about season 1. That video is fucking terrible. Holy shit. I want to go back and redo those. I'm not going to, but it's always something to think about. Maybe in the future I could expect to. For GX, which I'm going to do next, after I do the Dark Side of Dimensions movie, I'm going to change the title from Everything Wrong With. It's going to stay pretty much the same format as it is for this video and the Capsule Monsters one. I just really don't like the Everything Wrong With title, and I want to move away from that. I hope you guys understand. I haven't decided on a title yet. It's probably going to just be the GX Retrospective or something like that, like looking back at Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. If you got a good title, leave it in the comments or message me on Twitter. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you next time in GX.
So it's the GX video. So it's the GX video. So it's the GX video. The GX video. How about the GX video? How's the GX video coming along?
Fuck this bit. I don't want to do this anymore. Fuck that.
What about the GX video?
Fuck you.